And you know what the hell happened? I got over there and there wasn't a sound. Everyone believed that I was Batman. I don't think I've learned anything much, except to get there on time and know your lines and play the music the way you would serve the writers. But as far as comedy is concerned, you know, there's something you can't teach. It's a matter of your natural timing and thinking funny. Now, I know you expect me to be funny even now, but I'm not going to be funny. Well, I think Bill Dozier, our late executive producer of Batman, in watching that commercial, discovered a young boy, Adam West, who had a sense of humor and had a little wit and knew how to use props and make them funny, and maybe a tongue-in-cheek aspect that worked for Batman, because Batman was a comedy. You know, it was a fantasy adventure for the kids, but pretty much a comedy for the older folks. The great Lorenzo Semple Jr., the writer of our first Batman pilot or script, is an enormously talented writer. He's won many awards, New York Film Critics and so on, written big features, and he decided that he had a take on Batman. And Bill Dozier and he were pretty much married, in agreement about it. And they called me in and told me, and I understood immediately what this thing was going to be. And I read Lorenzo's script, and I just fell down laughing. And I thought, yeah, that's the kind of comedy I'd like to try. Something absurd and something that might have some appeal and last a while. Like, I suppose, many actors, I've heard Johnny Depp with the Pirates movies and so on, you have to win people over. So they'll have confidence in what you're doing and see what you're doing and think, well, maybe that guy has the right idea. And this is what happened to me. They wanted it very straight and Lone Ranger kind of thing and nothing behind the mask. I couldn't do that. I felt that Batman is a very interesting character. But even comedically, as the bright knight and not the dark knight, you had to have fun with it. And not think you were funny, of course, and wink at the camera, but have fun with it. And be so absurd in your seriousness, and yet have some lust going behind the mask for whatever. I was a little timorous about that, a little taken aback with what might occur in that costume when I walked on the set for the first time. And so I opened the door of my trailer on the stage. I saw the lighting, and everything was quite dark except for a brilliant setup where I was going to work for the first time, the first scene. And I decided I'd walk through pools of light to get to that spot in the costume as much like Batman as I could. And you know what the hell happened? I got over there and there wasn't a sound. Everyone believed that I was Batman. And I think that comes from that wonderful baggage that I had with the character, because Batman had been read, loved, and like #1 favorite in the comics for years. And Batman had been seen on the screen in the old movie serials in black and white. So there was kind of an aura, a sense of Batman in the air, and all I had to do was play it. What I tried to bring was something fresh and something people had never seen as a dimension of Batman. And the only way I could understand to do it was to make it fun for, you know, the entire family spectrum, to make it funny and ludicrous, absurd in a sense, but always kind of believable. There's a fine line, you know. I'm not going to tell you my secrets. It's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. That's because Bert, what's his name again?
I think it's Bert.
Oh, Bert, yes. No, that's because Bert spoke quite enthusiastically and quickly, and I felt that Batman should muse and be more deliberate, thinking about solving this or that, almost like a Sherlock Holmes. The old Basil Rathbone movies. You know, after all, it was the dynamic duo. I had to be dynamic somehow. I think you're right. I think it was too new, too fresh, and that people who were sitting there with the test devices, they were stunned. They don't know what the hell it was. What is this thing we're watching? This guy in tights running around with a kid, and it's funny though, but they didn't know what to do, how to react. They couldn't do it honestly and personally because they were stunned with it. Now, what does that tell you? We've got something so awful, or maybe something interesting and unusual. Well, it was kind of chaos the first week or so of shooting, in that Bert kept getting in the way of bombs and speeding cars and birds that were dropping, and terrible thing. But it was a little, I guess, risky. We took some chances in the first week or so and continued to until we got acquainted with what they were doing as far as the action and the explosives. Because in those days, we didn't have enhancement with computers, green screen, anything. We just had to go out and do it. So poor Bert evidently was blown through a wall or two with a little heavier charge than was supposed to have been there. I don't know. I have really, at the time, I had no idea why it was clicking. I suppose because it was fresh. And it was a time in our country where we needed something colorful and fresh and different. Look what was happening in society. Look at the world of art. And we were taking it that direction. And as a matter of fact, our show was kind of an homage to an earlier Batman comic book. And indeed, we were responsible for having sold an enormous new amount of Batman comics. And all comics. We just kind of kicked off the whole thing. And, you know, this Batman thing has become a billion-dollar franchise. And I don't know how it happened, but I was the actor who kicked it off. Well, I think also the show was big, yeah, but it tells you something about our culture and what people really enjoy, what people are more fixated on, what grabs them. Now, we watch the news, and the news has become so, I guess, fixated on tragedy and whatever sells, and this is the direction it usually follows. But there are very few things that are light and funny and enjoyable. I mean, a lot of television now makes an attempt at that, and some of them do it quite well. But I think people really, and I'm not saying anything new, people want to escape when they come in from whatever they're doing, maybe turning a screw in a factory for 8 hours. They want to see something that they can relate to that's funny or grabby in drama, something that arouses the emotions, gets to them intellectually, whatever. And we certainly did all of that. remember the incident when the late Bill Dozier called. It was a wonderful guy. And he had a great knack for putting talent together and keeping things all kind of unified and productive. He, when I was on the cover of Life magazine, he called me into the office. He said, Adam, I want you to see something. I hadn't seen it yet. He threw the magazine down on his desk in front of me. I looked at it, and I looked back up at it, and I was kind of, I guess, self-satisfied in a way. I just stood there and looked at him with a little grin, and he said, oh, wait a minute. Don't forget, there have been 12 Tarzans, Adam. Oh, okay. We'll see. Well, I think definitely that Batman was part of the Lichtenstein, all of those art movements that were going on, because we were the first show, and all of those kind of wondrous, splashy, primary comic book colors that people were painting in, and that I painted now myself today, in that I'm starting a little different movement in that direction artistically. And my paintings are selling. If you'd like one, I could arrange it. Where's my agent? Fred! This is Fred Bombastic Westbrook over here. Fred, see if you can pitch a painting. I think Burt was a surprisingly good actor, even though that was his first kind of professional gig. But because he came in with so much enthusiasm and energy and that childlike quality, he was just right. And Burt had a way of listening, which is terribly important to an actor. And I think, in a sense, I was able, because I'd done quite a bit of work, to, to give Burt a few pointers as we went along. And Burt is a quick learner. I mean, he really picked up on stuff quickly, and he understood that comedic relationship between Batman and Robin. He just got it. Well, I did occasionally kid Burt, tease him a bit by holding up a cape in front of his face in front of a take, but only if he misunderstood something. If he was doing something he shouldn't do, as my sidekick. Okay, take two, and it would come down. Frank Gorshin, the late Frank Gorshin, was an amazing actor. He was always on the manic, dangerous edge, which I love, and I could relate to that. And so Frank and I got along well, and we loved to play the scenes together as those quite disparate characters. And Frank always made me laugh, and I made him laugh. So what more can you ask for? When on camera, is that a camera? We're on camera? Oh, it turned out quite well. We had so many really professional, well-schooled, brilliant raconteurs and actors on the show. Burgess Meredith, Cesar Romero, all those people, that I felt privileged to be working with them. And really, I learned a great deal from standing there toe-to-toe with these people. Because if you got to do all your acting behind a mask, you got to do a lot maybe with your chin or something in your mouth. I don't know, but you really kind of absorb things from these great people. Bertha was our first black Catwoman, and I thought she was remarkable. And she'd been around for a while, and she certainly knew what she was doing. She wasn't just a singer, a cafe, entertainer. She was a fine actress. She started, I think, with Orson Welles in Paris. And no, we got along quite well. And I thought she was really good. But there were 3 Catwomen, or Catwomens, and this kept me very busy. 27 lives, I think. Tough. Isn't that interesting that Julie, I think, and Leanne saw the same thing, that Catwoman was playful. She was a tease, but she wasn't basically psychopath evil. You might think so, but she wasn't really. And she promised to date me when she gets out of jail. Yeah, for good behavior, and that'll be good. As you know, she gave me I can't say this. She gave me curious stirrings in my utility belt. Did I do that right? It's been a while. That was almost Look-Wellian. You mentioned that the pilot, that did look well at being funny. And yeah, that long sequence with the bomb on the pier in Santa Barbara, in which I couldn't get rid of the bomb, or Batman couldn't. So the last line, he's totally winded and frustrated. And he says, what? Looking down at the water, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. And that line has gone on for year after year after year. And people ask me to say it. They send me pictures of me with the bomb and that line. I have heard that that is one of the funnier sequences in movies. But of course, I won't get my Oscar, my Emmy, or my Grammy, or my Tony carrying a bomb around.
But you will get your star.
Yeah. But I have stars on sidewalks all over the country. I did. I was aware of it because the media were coming to me. And I just, what did I do? Was my attitude. Hey, be honest and be fun and funny, and that's about it. But evidently that carried through to people, and I think people appreciate honesty and humor and vulnerability to an extent, and that's all I could do. There are other things I did where I pretended to be really tough, as cowboys and villains and so on. But I enjoyed Batman, and I enjoy playing comedy. It's pretty obvious. I can't really talk about it. I was so rejected. Oh my God. Please excuse me. When you do a role, I guess, and do it convincingly or well, and especially something in a costume, and that people like, it's tough to get out of that for a while. I mean, it took me at least 5 years of theater and doing all kinds of stuff to sort of break the mold a bit and begin to get accepted in other things. But it worked. Persistence. Persistence, folks, will do a lot. But you gotta have talent. You gotta be ready. Timing. I didn't read comic books very often or watch any kind of superhero stuff, except, wait a minute, Hawk of the Wilderness in the movies. When I was a little tiny tot, my mother took me to the Roxy Theater in Walla Walla, Washington on Saturday mornings and just put my brother and me in those seats. And half the day we sat there watching Hawk of the Wilderness and Flash Gordon and Hoppy and all those people. It must somehow have gotten to me. I must have thought, oh my God, there's a bigger world out there than on the farm. And I went for it. And I got lucky. Canceled?
Yeah.
Canceled? I've never been canceled. Yes, it was canceled because, number one, we had enough episodes, enough product, as they say, to go into reruns. And at that time, it was the most expensive show ever done. And they decided they'd just wrap the show, go into reruns, and make the money back. And the audiences had begun to fall off a bit. I mean, you know, when you're way up at the top, it's going to go down a little bit, isn't it? You can't go further up.
Would you like to stay on longer?
No, I had it pretty much because I sensed too that we'd done enough of it, and I mean, I was pretty much played out, you know, eating the same lunch every day, and also I think the writers were beginning to try a little too hard, and when the money dried up and we couldn't get some of the elements of production that we really wanted and needed, and the show became a little cheapened, I didn't miss it. Well, the only problem, I think, occurred in the minds of some people on set and maybe some of the audience, but I thought it was a good additive because the show was beginning to slip a little. So they wanted someone who was charming and beautiful and had a little sex appeal. And maybe they felt that she could have a relationship with one of the lead characters. I'm not sure, but she was really fun to work with and very good at what she did. Yvonne was a dancer as well, so she moved quite well. Well, I'd mentioned before, I think, Frank Gorshin several times, who played Riddler, and Burgess Meredith, who was the Penguin. And they were always fun because they were knowledgeable, and I just kind of like to go out and tip a few glasses with them and listen to their stories. You got laughs. Burgess, you know, was a very experienced theater pro. And I learned a lot from Burgess. You go into a discotheque, right, as Batman, and you assume that no one, of course, will recognize you. And you say things like, check your cape, Batman. No, I shouldn't wish to be conspicuous. And, you know, things like that. And then you're slipped a Mickey or some kind of potion in your orange juice at the bar, and you suddenly have complete abandonment and you can do anything you want as Batman and really get goofy and do the Batusi, you know, that I invented on the way to the studio. I think, you know, those are wonderful comedic moments. It was easy to play Batman. Oh my God, you know, all I had to do was a sense memory of playing Batman as a kid. You know, so the moment I pulled on that cowl, it was like, in my head, it was like, hey, you want to go out and play Batman? Let's go. Come on. I want to be Batman. You know. That's a profound question in a way for an actor, because do you use the costume? Do you use all the accoutrements? Do you use other things, makeup, etc., or do you use what's inside and so on, and your take on things? Well, I studied with, you know, Actors Studio and all that stuff, and I think that the costume did help enormously because you can use that. It's an obstacle, and yet it's very helpful. You know, in the way you move. For example, if I couldn't move my head easily in that cowl and the way the cape was attached, then I'd use that. Remember how Cary Grant moved? Kind of, yeah. In other words, I couldn't turn my head like this, so I used that. You know, you use these things. Or you trip on the cape. You use that in a way. So you're right, I mean, the costuming, those exterior things help, but you better bring the interior stuff in or you're dead. The cowl, I'm a little nearsighted anyway, as you can tell. I don't have any vanity about glasses, but being nearsighted and being behind those holes in the cowl, it made it doubly hard to see. And I was very fortunate in that I grew up in kind of an athletic way. And so I was able to adjust to that. As a matter of fact, even that helped me in the character. It made Batman a little different in certain ways. When he was examining something, you'll have to watch. How can I talk about acting? This is ridiculous. You know, it's very difficult for an actor to talk about acting because we have our secrets. And I feel kind of goofy revealing them. But I will tell you about a few things. Now, you ask about the costume and so on, and movement. Yeah, that really helped. Because what you do, if you really, I think, are a good actor, you use any nuance, any little zephyr of air, whatever's around you, with your character. Because things happen in the real world. Things happen to you on a set with other people, and you listen. It's that easy. Simple. I got the easiest job in the world. The separation of Bruce Wayne and Batman was a simple matter. Because with Batman, you could be, as I said earlier, musing and moving all the time and kind of itchy to get something going. But as Bruce Wayne, oh, you're just super cool, and you've got all the money and elegance that anyone ever needed. And you know that you're very attractive, and you have a good butler, and you have fine cars, and so on. But you also have a secret that no one must know. So you kind of keep that going inside you, that I've got a secret, but you play over that and against that a bit. It's simple. I got the easiest job in the world. Playing an elder statesman Batman, yes, that has crossed my mind. I think because Batman can be shown in so many dimensions and different lives in a sense. I could do that. I could. But again, I think I'd have to do it my way. Yeah, but Batman as an elder statesman is interesting because if Bruce Wayne the younger has a problem that's so horrific and inescapable, and he can't quite deal with it, for the elder Bruce Wayne to come in the window or something, who knows, might be very interesting. Even as a hologram, even as a dream, a fantasy, whatever. There's so many ways Batman can be done. I never imagined that I would get to the point that you described. Certainly I had ambitions, but I was more concerned with, I think, just one step at a time, just trying to get roles that were interesting and that I felt I could be creative playing and bring something fresh to. But again, I say that I was fortunate because somehow my timing was such with those commercials, with whatever I did, that they saw them and they said, "Kid, I think you can play Batman." And they called me in and I was able to do it the way I wanted. I mean, but I never had a sense of it being, how can I say, something permanent, something as lasting as it's been. But I do know one thing about myself, and I think maybe you've been told by other performers who were there, that may have thought there was a little conceit in this. But I remember very well communicating with certain people. You do the very best you've ever done in your life at this moment, because this show will be a classic. It will go on forever. So you do the best work you've ever done in your life. This is your career right now, this moment, this show. And then you make it funny and fun. But I really felt that, only that, but not that certainly our show would go on and, do the things you talk about.